If you're buying a home, you got three big choices. You can buy new construction, you can purchase an existing home, or buy land and build your dream home. And let me tell you, each option has some serious pros and cons that can make or break your decision. Making the wrong choice could cost you tens of thousands of dollars or worse, leave you stuck in a home that doesn't fit your lifestyle. So in this video, we're gonna talk about and break down the pros and the cons of each option so you can make the best decision for your future. So let's get into it. We have Sydney back on as usual. Sydney, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
And so let's talk about the one that's the most common, and we'll work our way down from there, which is existing homes.
Yes.
So when people call, and that's typically what they're calling about, they're thinking about existing homes. Maybe once in a while you get somebody who says, I absolutely positively want a brand new home, but usually it's more of a, if I found something I liked, I would do it.
Right.
Let's talk about some of these pros and cons about buying an existing home.
Buying an existing home is definitely easier to do in terms of you know what you're getting up front. So as we're going to start the process of finding you a pre-existing home that works for you, the floor plan's great, the area's great, you love where that house is located, you pretty much get to understand what you're getting immediately, because once you get into contract, you have an inspection period. Hopefully, your inspector finds as much information out and the seller has been upfront and honest about what's going on with the house, and you get to know everything.
Well, I think the biggest thing that people forget sometimes about buying a home is they think they're out trying to find a home.
Right.
And reality is it's a process of elimination.
Mm-hmm.
So the way we start is trying to figure out, one, what price point can you be in? Because the price point is going to really eliminate potentially a lot of areas in town. Unless you can afford $3 million, then that pretty much opens up most of Reno. But if you can only afford 400 or 800 or 1.2, it does limit it. So it's kind of a process of elimination.
Mm-hmm.
And where we always want to start is with those questions that we always want to ask is price point, what is your situation, how soon do you need to be here, are schools important or not? It's like that process of a laundry list of questions that we like to ask. And for those that watch the videos, a lot of times they'll send us an email that answers all these questions before we ever even speak to them, which is really awesome. But that's kind of that first thing. It's putting that plan together, before, as starting that process, because people a lot of times they want to go out and start looking at homes. And sometimes there's areas that we don't need to go to other than just to show them these are some areas. Mm-hmm. And so how do we sort of best feel, how prepared do you think people are when we're having those conversations?
I think originally people are never prepared to buy real estate. It's very rare that you find somebody that calls you and your first conversation is, this is what I want. I'm already going to answer your questions. We're ready to go when you are.
Right.
Very rare that
I'm
happens.
Cash. I'm loan pre-approved. I got all my ducks in a row. And again, it does change the process a little bit if you have something to sell in another market while you're moving here. It's no different than when we try to sell properties for our people that are moving to other areas. There is a plan and a process to that. And there's a strength of offer thing that I like to talk about where obviously the further along you are in the process of selling that other house, the stronger an offer is going to be on something that you're going to put here. So if we start that process, we ask them all the questions, we get all their contact information, we make sure that they either have cash or their loan pre-approved, and we've got all our ducks in a row, and now we're ready to hop in the car and start looking around. And anymore, a lot of people are looking for homes online. So the way we look for homes is a lot different than the way we used to. Ideally, we can get them in the car with us, especially if they're not from here, so they can sort of talk to us the whole time we're driving around with them, which I think is a huge pro as they're trying to learn these areas. Once we go out there and now we've sort of narrowed things down and we found the house.
Yes.
And we're ready to make an offer on the house. What is that next process? What is that next thing that they need to be thinking about?
Is making sure the strength of our offer is good. And once you do get into contract, so we'll just say that your offer was great, we got it accepted, we're ready to rock and roll. Making sure that you understand your costs associated with all of that. So obviously with a pre-existing home, for the most part, your cost is up front. You get to see what you're about to get into immediately versus new home construction and or building your own property. You don't always know what the end result is going to be.
And the biggest cost that people forget about or that, sometimes they're like, what are my expenses going to be? Mm-hmm. The loan is typically the biggest expense. So if you're borrowing money, usually you get what I used to call a good faith estimate. They call it something else now, where it talks about what your costs are going to be involved in that loan. The rest of it, it's all based upon size and age and what kind of systems you have on what inspections we're doing and how those inspections are going to cost. Yep. Could be anywhere from $300 or $400 on a small house, where it could be a couple thousand if you're doing wells and septic tanks and radon tests and, all kinds of other, regular home inspections and pest inspections. So those are costs we want people to be fully aware of up front, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, so that you know all the potential places that you're going to have costs and all those things that are going to happen. And we've talked about this one in the past. Before we go and see homes now, which is different than when I started, what is the thing that we have to do?
We have to do an exclusive buyer representation agreement.
So that is something we can explain to people when we meet with you. But anymore, we have to be contractually working together before we can start opening doors and letting you into houses. So that's something we'll go in much more detail on as you reach out to us and have specific situations for yourselves. But once we do all those things and we go through the process, I always tell people that negotiation at the beginning for that price is only negotiation number one.
Yep.
You're negotiating, you're all the way through the entire contract. And we're the kind of client agents where once that deal closes, we want to be in contact with you for the long haul as well. So we want you to reach out to us, especially when you're moving here from another area. So the process of how we do it here is not the same as what we do it in other places. So people have to understand when we get the question all the time is, well, that's not how we do it there. Where are we?
We are in Reno, Nevada.
And what does that mean?
We are not there.
We're going to do it. We're going to do it the way we do it here and the way we're not doing it there. So the process is one thing. Existing homes, typically time frame wise, more availability wise, you can move in quicker. What are some other things that you would think people would want to know about that existing home? And then we'll jump into the new construction.
With pre-existing homes, you do need to pay attention to the age that they were built, what's been going on over time with these properties, because obviously certain homes may be built in the 70s have already had their upgrades done. Their systems are upgraded, their roof, all of the interior work is already completed. However, though, we're getting into that odd kind of portion now where we had a lot of home construction in the early 2000s here in Reno, which means we're starting to get to that 20 to 25 year age for a lot of these homes. So pay attention to the HVAC system, pay attention to the water heater, the roof, and things that potentially are starting to go bad in these properties.
When we're talking about existing homes, like you'll see a neighborhood where there's a lot of similar floor plans or identical homes for the most part, as far as the layout, the square footage, the bedrooms, bathrooms. And then people start to ask, well, why are the prices all over the board? Well, if you got a 25-year-old home and one person's went ahead and spent $25,000, new appliances, new furnace, new water heater, new air conditioner, those are going to be huge things. And again, we want people looking at houses on, does my furniture fit? Does the floor plan work? Is this a neighborhood I want to be in? And we look at houses as, okay, we start looking around at things that they're not looking at. It's funny how differently we look at the house because we're not going to live there. Right. So some things, like I said, early on, we just want them to figure out what they like. Then we'll have conversations about all these other things that people need to worry about. Now, as we lead into new construction, so different animal. What can you tell people? You've been checking out the new home subdivisions a lot lately. What would be some things that we want to kind of go back and forth on and talk about that would be some things people maybe aren't thinking about?
Well, I think the process, first off, is very different when you buy new home construction. You're buying straight from the builder. There is no agent involved. There's no seller. You're buying from the builder and some salesperson who works for the builder. The negotiation,
as an actual employee, like people have to understand that's an employee of the builder typically.
Yes, and there is no negotiation like you can do with a pre-existing home. And I know for you, you said that you've lived in 3 different brand new houses. What was that process like for you?
So it changed a lot over the years. So my very first house that I bought in Reno 30 years ago now, typically builders at that time were just building them as fast as they could. It was entry-level homes. They had a bunch of lots and they literally were just building and they would tell you, these are going to be done on these months. And there are not a lot of choices as far as upgrades or things because it was entry level. My second home was a little more upgraded and you got to do some things. And then my third home, even that was, each time up as we stepped up a little bit, you had different options. In today's world, what I keep telling people is this: builders don't want to release more than a handful of lots and they want you to buy them 6, 12 months before the house is ever even built. Where my first brand new house, literally, I bought it and 45 days later, I was living in it. And now that's just not a thing anymore. I think a lot of builders got really scared off in the Great Recession, 07, 08, 09, where we see it. We have subdivisions in Reno where there were 500 lots and these 500 were one builder and then nothing got built for 5 years. And then these 5, other half is built by a different builder and the homes aren't the same. So we do get a little bit of unusual neighborhoods in that case sometimes. But if you're someone who's thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, do me a favor. Click the link in the description below. We'll get a copy of our free buyer's guide out to you so you can start your journey to Northern Nevada. When you look at new construction, when you see a billboard that says starting in the 400s, starting in the 800s.
Keyword is starting.
Starting. And that is like the absolute smallest house on the smallest lot with no upgrades. So that is not typically what happens. What typically happens?
Well, the price just keeps going up from there because a lot of the time what will happen is you can do minor customizations to these houses where sometimes there's an additional bedroom or maybe a den that's optional to you.
Right.
And then it just keeps going from there. So no blinds, no appliances, no landscaping. So those are more costs associated after the fact.
So when we talk about there's kind of a handful of builders here. One's kind of known for the entry level, middle level, high level. And I know, like I said, when you buy your first house and it's the low level, entry level points, there's not a lot of customization you can do. But as you move your way up, a lot of times there might be a room that can be a bedroom or a den, or there might be ways to move some walls and do a few things. I know my third house it was like that, where they had the option. It was a tandem 3-car garage where you had the 2-car and then that tandem room. You could make it a 2-car garage and have that room. Or I got lucky. We were the only ones that had this. We had a lot that was really wide in the front. We were able to get a 3-car garage wide and get that room. So the prices were all the same though. So like we were able to get some additional square footage in garage where nobody else had both. And down the road, it was a great thing for us to be able to, make a little extra money because we had those things. But again, picking the upgrades or the lot premiums, there's a lot of variety in those. And again, a lot of times I like to ask the person sitting on site, like, what is the average spend that people are doing on upgrades? Because again, if it says an average house in this neighborhood's in the 400s, but the average person's spending $100,000 on upgrades, well, then you're not really buying a house in the 400s. The other thing is property taxes on existing homes. We know what they are.
Exactly.
And again, like we talked about, older homes is going to be lower. We have a cap every year. It's going to go up. On new construction, especially if your house, you agree to buy it today, but you're not moving in it for 9 months or 12 months, because again, their timeframes are always estimations.
Right.
So it makes it really hard in planning. I have a home to sell, usually temporarily have to live somewhere. You end up moving twice. There's definitely some cons to it. But the whole not knowing what the property taxes are can be a huge one.
That's another unknown that you need to be aware of and need to be prepared for, where we can try our best to help you with homes that are a couple of years old that are maybe as similar as possible in terms of giving you a guess for it. But until that house is fully completed and it has its clean bill of health from the city, we won't know until then.
So when we talk about people being interested in new homes,
yes,
look online, search around online. But if you want representation on a new home, we have got to be there with you. We've got to register you online.
the first time that you go.
Yeah, so don't go without us, because here's the thing. Once you've been there and gone, then they won't let us represent you anymore. There are lots of things you need to be aware of. There are things we can negotiate. There are things you need to know. We've helped lots of people, like I said, personally done it. Lots of clients have done it. And people need to know that person, you think they're sitting there in that office
Trying to help you.
And they are trying to be helpful. I don't want to say they're not helpful. But at the end of the day, they represent the builder. Their contracts are different. Their paperwork is different. Yep. We've seen all of them, and they're very one-sided contracts.
Yes.
So people need to be understanding of that. The other thing with new construction is people think it's going to be perfect, not one issue.
Right.
What do we call it? I call it Blue Tape Day.
Yes, it is Blue Tape Day.
And explain to people what Blue Tape Day is.
Well, you get to go, it's your kind of final walkthrough before
Closing.
You close, and you walk around legitimately with a roll of blue Scotch tape, and you walk around and you stick it to things that are wrong with the house, whether it's a scuff on the wall or there's a dent somewhere or you have a ding in the floor. Right. You get to go around and say, this is everything wrong with it. And a lot of the time there is a handful of things. I mean, I'm not sure if any of yours had a crazy amount, but
it's for the majority of it is usually cosmetic things or something. Maybe the builder put it in correctly or something, whatever the case may be. But a lot of them are not things that would stop you from moving into a house. Mm-hmm. So you want to definitely be able to move in and do that. The other thing is a lot of them have these either what I call 1-year full-blown warranties, so that the first year they'll cover everything. And I always think it's a great idea, 10, 11 months into living in your house, have a home inspector come. Do a home inspection. It might be anywhere from $300 to $800, depending on the size of the house. And then what's nice is you have this nice little report.
Yes.
You just give it to the warranty, people at the home builder and say, hey, here's a list of stuff that needs to be taken care of. And then that way it's not coming from you. It's like, no, I just had it inspected. And most times it's just smaller maintenance things because people don't go in crawl spaces or attics, or you're not going to go look on your roof. You just want to know, here's your opportunity to have those things looked at and kind of your last chance. Because usually if they have a 5 or 10-year warranty, it's strictly for like the foundation or something major. All the small stuff at this point is all yours. And again, every builder has a different level of what they do. And when you're getting to that, what I call the warranty part, that's a cost center for a builder. So you're always going to get put on the bottom of the list. So you got to kind of be a, lack of a word, pain in their ass.
A little bit, yeah.
So that they will come out to your house and kind of do these things. So again, lots of pros and cons between doing new construction versus existing home. Now, the one that we get called about the least, but people do ask about it, is I'll just go buy a piece of land and build a house. And that's our reaction usually, is a little bit of a giggle. And so what are your thoughts on this one? I know this one's kind of a tough one. I think people think it's going to be easy.
Yeah, it's, I think, a lot more difficult than people think in terms of the cost of land, in all honesty, has increased significantly. And resale value on land, just vacant land, is difficult. I mean, you'll find pieces of land that have been sitting there for a very long time. Getting your utilities to this piece of vacant land, whether it has them on them or not, is very rare. Most of the time, you're going to have to dig a well, dig a septic. You're going to have to bring power and electricity all the way to the property just to get a foundation and utilities on this piece of vacant land. You're going to be well into 6-figure prices at that point.
People don't think about that stuff. We have a really good friend of mine who is now building a house. He's done this multiple times. He does it himself. The permitting process is a pain in the ass.
Takes forever.
The amount, and again, they literally build it themselves. But he's done this, and he said he would never do it again. It's just, it's so expensive now. He's getting exactly what he wants. He's done this multiple times now, so he knows what he's getting himself into. And it's one of the first questions, like I had a call like a day or two ago, and someone asked about this, and right out of his first thing out of he said, he goes, I am a former contractor. If you're a former contractor or you have a much better idea of what you think is going to happen, by all means, that's the kind of person that I would be like, okay, let's have the conversations.
Right.
To be honest with you, most people, I literally try to talk them out of it. I think they're better off if they want to try to customize something maybe, or buy something that they can sort of cosmetically remodel and have a house sitting there. It just makes a little more cost certainty. Because again, when you start doing those things, it's like the cost is out of control. And anymore, at the time we're shooting this, with everything going on with tariffs and government policy, and a lot of our building materials come from Canada. Yeah. Who knows how expensive that stuff's going to be? And when I talked to my friend Martin was talking about how just from this time to last time, how much more expensive per square foot everything is. So, if you're building high end, I wouldn't necessarily say it's going to be cheaper, but it's going to be a long, drawn out process that is always going to cost more, take longer, and it's never going to go exactly the way you want to go, because he just got messed up on a few things because the weather undid some of the work they did. So have we, I don't know the last time we've had anyone successfully really buy a piece of land and go build a house. It's been a minute.
I don't remember it, and I don't remember hearing anything about it even before I was doing this that you had been working with. But I do think it's not a bad idea for those of you that want the control over exactly what you want. If you have the budget and the wherewithal and the patience, honestly, to do it, or like the gentleman you talked to not too long ago that's a general contractor, that if this is your thing, totally understandable. But for the average person that maybe thinks it's going to be more cost effective, I really, really do not think so.
Yeah, the cost effective part is like, that's not going to be the case. Right. So I think for most people, it's not a great idea. But I think, like you said, for a small percentage of people, it makes sense for them. So as always, when people are thinking about coming here, they need to have a plan. They need to discuss the different options with us. And before they go to any new home subdivision, they need to come see us first. Any other last words of advice that you would give to any of these people that are thinking about learning about Northern Nevada? Because again, I know one thing we didn't really mention was that time frame for new construction, because it becomes so uncertain. And the biggest thing people like is certainty, is that just makes that process difficult for people. So anything else that they've been hearing lately, last words?
First off, I think just people should just call us. If you're ever wondering about anything, call us. Our website is very easy to find. It is linked down below every single video. Go there, find our number, pick up the phone, talk to us. We love talking.
Nothing.
It costs nothing. It's free. We'll talk to you for free.
If you're someone who's thinking about moving to Northern Nevada, check out this video we did right here about the best neighborhoods to live in.